Hey chat, I'm sick as fuck. Um, but it's fine. I think I'm through the worst of it. I think so far I feel better today than I did yesterday. Yesterday was probably the worst I felt, so I think that was rock bottom, I think. I think no place to go but up from here, right? Um, Mostly right now my I just feel congested. And it's weird cuz last night I was telling Chaz that my nose was really runny, but the muc it was this is so gross. It was really watery, really thin snot. So I wasn't really congested, but it was my nose was really runny. And I was just always blowing my nose and sniffling, but I could still breathe through my nose. But today the snot is has thickened up. I feel like someone went into my nose and put cornstarch in my snot in the middle of the night. So now Now I can breathe through my left nostril, my right nostril. She's taking a break right now, I guess. She's off the clock. So left nostril's doing all the work. Um, but my throat is a little hurty. There's a lot of pressure in my ears. I can't really hear out of this ear. It okay. I'm not deaf, but it sounds it sounds muffled. Like there's water in my ear. Um. Anyways, no one cares. Um, I stopped and got Dunkin' on the way to the vape shop. And it's funny because, um, like, so I work at the vape shop every Saturday and Sunday, right? Like, this is, I don't want to say the highlight of my week, but at my real job throughout the week, um, I definitely dread that way more because it requires a lot more thinking and I have to care more. Not that I don't care about the vape shop, obviously when I'm here, I do what I'm supposed to be doing and I do it to the best of my ability for sure. Um, but this feels okay, I got off track. Too much context. I'm putting too much context. I usually stop and get Dunkin' or McDonald's on the way to the vape shop as a reward for myself for working on the weekend. Because working 7 days a week, even if both jobs, neither job is super intense. Both of them, I'm pretty much just sitting. At the vape shop, I just have to get up when a customer comes in. Um, but neither of them are super intense. But just working every day can be kind of exhausting. It almost feel what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my youth, really? Um, but fuck. Yeah, so I stop at Dunkin' or McDonald's usually on the way to the vape shop on the weekends as a reward. But realistically, I need the reward during the week. Like, oh, I need the reward during the week. Saturday and Sunday, I'm good. I know I'm gonna show up here, be here for 8 hours. I watched half a season of The Prince of Bel Air a few weeks ago, which I need to get back on that grind, my Prince of Bel Air grind. Um, my mom really loved The Prince of Bel Air. When I was growing up, I definitely was like raised on Friends and The Fresh Prince. Um, but I feel like Friends was on. I remember Friends coming on. I would have been 4 when the last season came out, but obviously after that it was such a big show. There was a lot of reruns on TV still. So I remember watching Friends on TV with my mom, and anytime my mom would see it on TV, she would put it on. Um, so I definitely remember more of Friends, but my mom growing up, I always knew she was a big Will Smith fan. She had his CDs and she had um at my grandma's house, her childhood bedroom, she had a Will Smith poster on the wall. I remember that very clearly. So my mom was always a Will Smith fan, and she always talked about the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. And she says the Fresh Prince of Bel Air is her favorite show of all time. Which is so weird because growing up, I always thought of Friends as her favorite show because that's what I remember watching together. But obviously before I really existed, it was the Fresh Prince. So anyways, I've been watching the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Like I said, I watched half a season here a few weeks ago, and then I'm I think I'm into season 2, I want to say. I don't know, but it's just interesting cuz it's like one of those shows where like I've seen episodes here and there, but I think I've seen a lot of the episodes I have seen are from like the later seasons. Like I haven't come across any episodes in the early seasons that I've seen so far where I'm like, "Oh yeah, I remember watching this as a kid." Like um all of it is I feel like everything I've seen so far is just random episodes from the last few seasons. So that's been cool. Um Also, I wanted to talk about my road rage because I've been tweaking a little bit on the road, which is very unlike me. Like, I don't. Uh, it's weird. I'm not an angry person. Like, I don't really get angry with people, but I am very impatient, and like, I'll tweak for like 30 seconds and then I'll be fine afterwards. Like, um, but I like it's hard for a person to make me angry. Like, I don't. Like I said, I don't really get angry with people. It's very hard to describe. Like, if I'm upset, I like 9 times out of 10 I will go right to crying instead of being angry. Like, I'll never like I don't yell at people or like argue really. I just go right to crying. But the road rage, I think it's from like just the idea of like the safety of my car and like no one and like I don't honk, by the way. I've only ever honked my car horn one time in my life. And it was because this person was trying to get into my lane and like was going to hit me, and I only honked so that they would know that I was there and they wouldn't hit me. Otherwise, I'd never honk. Like, first of all, I'm not trying to get shot. I don't know. I know it's like obviously a rare thing. People honk all the time and no one gets shot. But like you see that shit on Facebook and on the news where it's like road rage incident leads to like 3 deaths. I'm not trying to be viral on Facebook for honking my horn. It's not that serious. But my road rage recently has been going kind of crazy. Like, I've been like just like I said, very impatient. Um, for example, on my way here this morning, I got really upset because um the I was trying to turn, and it just irks me when people don't turn on red, especially if there's like blatantly no cars coming. Like, it's 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday. Like, there's people on the road, but it's not like there's not a lot of people on the road. So like we're at this red light. The intersection's clear. Like, there's nobody coming. Why aren't you turning on red? Because like I have places to be. I wasted 10 minutes stopping to get Dunkin'. Now the clock is ticking. Like, is that my fault for poor time management? Yes. Is that the story of my life? Also, yes. But like, why aren't you turning on red? Like, what's stopping you? And also, here's my other thing. I feel like a lot of people either don't know or like I don't know. But like the fact that you can turn left on red if it's a one-way street, why do people act like that's not a thing? Like Grand River, how it's one way. Some of like the random turnarounds have like lights. If we're stopped at a light and the light's red but nobody's coming, you can turn. Like, it's a one-way street. Turn, bro. Like, I'm waiting for you. I'm twiddling my thumbs. I want to turn, not to like judge or anything, but like, damn. So yeah, road rage has been going kind of crazy. I've just been really, I think, impatient and like almost agitated in general lately. And it's really hard for me to kind of pinpoint why, because I am on a new medication. I don't know, and like the medication, I was reading some of the side effects, and like it can cause like agitation, but it's one of the like less common side effects. And I'm someone who like I don't really even get side effects to begin with. Like, I very rarely experience side effects from a medication. The worst I usually get like you maybe some nausea, or like when I first started taking the medication I'm on now, I was taking it at because okay, great, here we go again. So I was taking Zoloft. I was taking Zoloft for like 2 or 3 years. Actually, it would have been 3 years this month. Um, but I would take it at night because that was just the easiest time for me to remember it. Because like when I first started taking it, I was working at BioLife, so I didn't have a set schedule. Like, some days I'd have to be up at 4 a.m. Some days I wouldn't have to be there till noon. Like, so I did not have a routine or a set schedule. So I knew that if I was gonna be taking my Zoloft in the morning, I was gonna forget it all the time. So I started taking it at night. But when she switched me to, we'll get into Zoloft in a minute because she and I have some things to talk about. When she switched me to Strattera, I'm off Zoloft, by the way. I think I've weaned. I think I'm good weaning. It took like a month, but I think I'm Gucci now. Anyways, the Strattera. So I initially I was like, oh well, I'll just take this at night. Like it'll be an easy switch. I won't have to change anything with my routine. I'm just taking a different pill. That didn't work. Because I found that taking the Strattera, because I was taking it around 10. That's when I would take it and like go lay down. But the Strattera, like when I started trying to take it close to close to bedtime, I couldn't fall asleep, or like I would fall asleep, but then I would wake up at like 3 a.m. Which I already have trouble sleeping. Like I'm kind of a light sleeper. I wake up if someone breathes too loud next to me. Which is also another funny thing because when I was younger, my mom always described me as a very heavy sleeper. So I don't know what changed. Maybe I'm just getting old. But so I'm already a very light sleeper, so I wake up a lot. Um, like my dogs wake me up a lot, especially like when they jump up on the bed, or if they jump off the bed, or if they're whining because they have to go potty. I'm usually the one who wakes up. So the Strattera like was not helping that. Like it was kind of contributing to me not getting restful sleep. So I stopped taking it before bedtime. Um, but now I'm supposed to be taking it. Where was I going with this? Anyways, now I'm taking it in the morning ish. I usually take it around 11. That's usually when I realize I haven't taken it. Cause like I took it yesterday. I forgot to take it Thursday. Like I said, I've been sick. Thursday I called off work, which is another thing. Like I should have muscled through on Thursday because I didn't feel that bad. I was just like, oh, I'm getting sicky. Thursday I should have muscled through because I felt way worse yesterday. I should have muscled through Thursday and called off Friday. But whatever. I'm also convinced that like I get better. Like as far as being sick, I feel like I get better by ignoring that I'm sick. Especially when, because like right now, it's like very sinusy. Like every time I get sick, it's like almost always a sinus infection. Um, because I get the same symptoms every single time, and it like I get it like every year. I think my yearly sinus infection is usually the only time I get sick. Um, and usually it happens in like October, November. So we got through the fall this year, and I was like, I'm clear, no sinus infection. We are so back. Like I'm good. Then January said, ooh, ooh, she really thought. So January really ruined me. Um, I don't remember where I was going with that. How many times am I gonna say that? Um, right. So I'm sick, very sinusy. Oh, why I think that I start to feel better if I don't call off work. I think is because this is very scientific. Um, like if I call off work for being sick, I'm usually sleeping. Like I'm usually laying down. The drainage is like all the mucus all like pools in my face. That's such a nasty ass concept. But the mucus just like all pools and sits there. And then I wake up and like I feel worse because I've just been laying horizontal and the mucus has built up. But if I oh, if I go to work and like I'm up and I'm working and I'm like sitting up, talking, standing, um the mucus can like drain more normally, so I think that I feel better. Um Sydney says her Craig isn't working right. Um prayers to her for real. I unfortunately I bought a Keurig like right before Christmas. I think I've used it 3 or 4 times. And I want to use it more. I don't really know what stops me. Like I don't have a good reason. I also don't really know why I thought I needed it. Um, I don't know. I have these ideas where it's like I want to get better about something or I want to build a routine around something, and it's like okay, well I need this thing if I'm going to do it. Like my thought was maybe I'll stop buying energy drinks and wasting so much money on energy drinks if I just drink coffee, which I by the way, I think coffee is a scam. I don't think there's whatever caffeine is in coffee is fake. Coffee does nothing for me caffeine wise. Like I need a Red Bull. Anyways, so I was like, well, maybe if I start drinking coffee, I'll stop spending so much money on energy drinks. Um, but I haven't been. Like I haven't been drinking coffee, and quite frankly, I like coffee. Don't get me wrong, but like I said, I don't think the caffeine does anything for me in a cup of coffee. So I'm really just drinking it for the taste. And Loki, I don't like coffee that much. You know, um, my other thing too is I don't really like hot coffee. I don't really like hot beverages in general. Like everything, whenever I get coffee, it's almost always iced, unless it's a case like right now where I'm sick and I want like the hot to soothe my throat. Um, but other than that, I don't even really drink coffee. I'm still buying energy drinks. And I spent $80 on a Keurig. So the math's really not working out. And quite frankly, I should know myself well enough now to know that I should have known that I wasn't going to use it. You know? So that's disappointing. Kind of hate myself for that. But also I'm kind of in denial about the fact that I'm not going to use it. Like I could give it away or return it or something. I can't return it now. It's definitely very used. Um but I could do something with it, and I'm in denial about the fact that I'm not going to use it. I'm still partially no, I'm gonna start using it eventually. Girl, no, you're not. Who are you kidding? Unless they start making Red Bull K Pods, you're not gonna use it. It's ridiculous, and I really the state of delusion that I live in is honestly quite impressive. Um, that reminds me, back to the Zoloft because I had some thoughts on Zoloft. I do. Ooh, somebody's walking around outside. It's raining. Where's your umbrella or a hat? You're gonna get sick and you're gonna be like me. The Zoloft, I do almost kind of feel like it ruined my life. Okay, so when I started taking Zoloft, I was down really bad, obviously, as one is when they start a new antidepressant. Because in high school, at some point, I had taken Celexa and I had taken Lexapro. Um, I didn't. This Alexa I was taking, they prescribed it to me freshman year. Um, so I was 14. Which, by the way, when I told my psychiatrist that, she was like, "That's really young for antidepressants," and I was like, "Don't look at me, girl. I'm not the one who prescribed it. I was 14." Um, but also even in my job, I've talked to a lot of people who started antidepressants that young, so I don't think it's that crazy. Um, but so I started this Alexa when I was 14, and um, it was mostly for anxiety. I was having a lot of anxiety at the time. Um, a lot of social anxiety specifically. I still have a lot of social anxiety. I'm always very it's tough because I'm very quiet and I'm very shy when I'm not comfortable in a situation. So people I think view me as an introvert, but I'm really not an introvert. I love to talk. Um, I can't shut the fuck up. It's hard for me to be comfortable enough to talk. I be thinking everyone hates me. So I'm not even an introvert. I'm a socially anxious extrovert. And it's funny because Gabe is the opposite. He's an introvert, but he can talk to people and he's very good at it. So I don't know. It's the opposite effect. I don't know, it's very weird. And I think it's funny that we're together because we're so opposite in that way. I think people who kind of know both of us but not maybe super well would look at us and think he's the yapper, which don't get me wrong, he can yap. But I definitely am the yapper. My poor mom has been the victim of my yapping for years and years and years. Cuz I would say aside from Gabe, who I've gotten to be he's definitely the person on the planet that I'm most comfortable with. Aside from Gabe, um like my mom's I would say the person that I'm most comfortable talking to. I can kind of talk to my mom about anything. But the unfortunate thing is I'll show up at her house. I did this a few weeks ago. I showed up at her house and I just yapped at her. I just talked for over an hour. And I don't even know she it was a very one-sided conversation. I was doing all the talking. It was like this. I just showed up and was just talking. I don't even remember what we talked about. But she was just kind of sat on the couch and she was like, yeah, yeah, for sure. No, fuck her. Yeah. So shout out my mom, but um, the Zoloft. Yeah. So I had a lot of social anxiety, which is why I started this Alexa. Then I was off of this Alexa for a while. The Lexapro I started because I don't remember actually when I started the Lexapro. I think they switched me from this Alexa to the Lexapro at some point because I felt like this Alexa wasn't really working. I still felt very anxious and I felt very depressed. Because I first started getting depressed in seventh grade. That's when I remember it, and I don't really know. I don't know. It might have. I mean, it might have been earlier than that, but seventh grade is when I remember realizing that I was depressed, and kind of realizing that the way that I was feeling, a lot of other people weren't feeling. Um, and Oh my god, I lost my train of thought again. So, anyways, Lexapro. I was on Lexapro till till the till senior year ish. I think I stopped taking it shortly after. Which is crazy because like the year after I graduated high school was the worst year of my life. Like, it's funny because that's when I needed the antidepressant the most. Like, I was down so bad, in 2019, but I digress. Not relevant to the conversation. The Zoloft I started taking, I think in like it would have been like 2021 or 2022. I don't remember. I really don't remember. But I started taking it I was at BioLife at the time, which was a job that I had I definitely have like a love hate relationship with. Um, like the time that I did spend working there, I there are definitely aspects of the job that I really liked. I liked how fast paced it was. I liked that there was always something to do. And I liked that it was very like not necessarily chaotic, but I just liked that it was very fast paced and like it was always go go go. Like there was no time to really stop and think, which I enjoyed. And then I also loved my coworkers. Like working at BioLife, that's like my favorite group of coworkers I've ever had at any job ever. Like we were all pretty close in age, for the most part, and then like we would have like some older people. BioLife's a plasma center, by the way, so plasma donation center. So we'd have a lot of older people too who had worked in the plasma industry and like had worked at other plasma centers and like were very experienced and maybe a little bit jaded. I don't blame them because like one of my coworkers at BioLife told me one time like you're so lucky you're at BioLife because if you worked at any of the other plasma centers, they would chew you up and spit you out. Like it's intense. And like I believe her. I fully believe her. BioLife almost killed me. And like it's just very like I said, very fast paced, very high stress. It is a little bit intense, especially when I became a manager. Um, I that like becoming a manager, some parts of it made me enjoy my job more because I got to learn more. Like that was my favorite thing was like getting trained in something new. Because I don't know what you would call it, a people pleaser, like a teacher's pet. I don't know, but I love being able to help. So the more stuff I learned, the more I could help. Like I was trained up front initially to poke fingers and take samples and take vitals. So that's where I initially started. And I was up there for a few months, and then like slowly I transitioned to the phlebotomy floor. Like first I learned how to set up the machines. So like if it was slow up front, I could run back there and put some sets up on the machines, and I knew that that was helpful. And then when I learned disconnects, so taking people off the machine, I knew that that was a really big help too. So like it was just like the more I learned, the more helpful I could be, especially because like I really loved all my managers there, and like I wanted to help them, and like I said, I loved my coworkers. This is so goofy. But like I loved all my coworkers, and I wanted so badly to be as helpful as possible. Um, so the more I learned, the more excited I was about the job. But it also, like I said, was very stressful. I guess in some way it's like an inherently stressful job because even though it's like it's just donating plasma, like in a way, like the donors that come in, their safety still is in your hands. Like you can kill someone if you fuck up. Um, and like the high stress of it was never even necessarily that because I knew what I was doing and I knew that I was capable of like doing things correctly. So it wasn't that I was even really stressed about. It was just more like especially towards the end of when I worked there, I would say like the last year or so, we got really short staffed. And then like one by one kind of like the pillars of our team started leaving. So like the very first one was like my boss, like the center manager. He left first. And I remember he told us in like I was a manager at the time, so we would have like management meetings, and I think there was like 6 or 7 of us. Um, so he told the managers first, and I remember we were sitting at like the table and like it was like a conference room kind of thing. We were sitting at the table, and he told us that he was going to be leaving, and I started crying. I don't like change. And also, at that point, like, I had never really had a good boss that I liked before, so I was like, it's over. Like, we're cooked. It's over. Whoever comes in here next, I'm gonna hate them. Um, like, no one's ever gonna replace Darren. So I did cry. I cried multiple times about that man leaving, by the way. I cried, like I said, in the meeting when he told us, and then I went home and cried telling Gabe about it. Um, I just really, really, really don't like change. And especially in a situation like that where I, for the first time, like, loved all my coworkers and loved the team that I was a part of. Um, like, the idea that it was going to be changing was very, very upsetting. Uh, but he left first. And then uh, one of our other managers left to go to PA school. So everyone was like super happy for him, but it was definitely like another blow. Like, great, another person's leaving. And then our training supervisor, who was like my emotional support coworker, he finished graduate school, so he went to go do like the field that he spent all this time and money studying to be able to do. That was a tough blow to me in my mental state, and I was like, great, great. Um, and then I don't know, it was just like one by one, everybody kind of left, and it was all within like this. It was all within like the span of a few months. Like, it was very much like over the summer, like everybody just kind of, they would drop them like flies, essentially. So it came down to it, and it was just like the only people really left were me, um, my, I guess, with like the people I'd be closest with even now, like Shelby and Brittany. And Brittany was my boss at the time, so like we couldn't really, like, we were definitely friendly, but like obviously you have to maintain a level of professionalism with your employees, which she was very good about. Brittany is one of the best bosses I've ever had. Like, my management team at BioLife is the best management team I've ever like worked under. It just very much felt like they really did care. And I'm thinking, like, when I work, the management team that I think of when I work there most is like Darren, Marco, and Brittany. Um, and it was just like, I like, those are the best bosses I've ever had, and I really appreciated working for them for all like different reasons. Um, like, Darren was like obviously the boss, but he was very like human, and like I wasn't afraid of him. Like, I respected him, but I was not afraid of him, and I wasn't afraid to like ask him questions, or like ask him for help. He's just very approachable. Maybe a little bit too nice. Maybe he could have been harder on us a lot of times. He was like the nice parent who didn't want the kids to be mad at him. Um, but and then Brittany is a very, very good boss. Like, definitely, she definitely leads by example, I would say, which is, I think, really rare. Like, she would never, and like they were all kind of like this, but she would never ask you to do something that she wouldn't do. Like, Brittany would do all of, like, the gross things. Like, she'd clean up the blood off the floor, and she would, handle the bio waste. Like, I never got the sense that like she thought that she was above any of us, even though like on the hierarchy she was. Um, but Brittany was really great. Like I said, like one of the best managers I've ever had. And then Marco was great too. Marco is it was like a topic of contention. A lot of people did not like Marco. At least at first. I think he has like almost a douchey energy, or like an asshole vibe that he gives off. Um, but I think a lot of people just kind of took that the wrong way. But I always felt like, even when he was being kind of douchey, I was always like, he's just kidding. Like, I never took it seriously. Um, and I thought he was a really good manager too. And a lot like Brittany, or yeah, a lot like Brittany and Darren. Just like, I was never really afraid to ask him questions. Like, I knew he wouldn't get upset with me, if I like messed something up or if I didn't know something. One time I did have to call him at like 7 in the morning. This was when I was a manager. One time I had to call him at 7 in the morning because I needed help with something. I don't even remember what it was, but I had to call him at like 7 in the morning. And when he answered, I could tell that he had just woken up, and I was like, "My bad, bro." And like, in hindsight, I remember thinking afterwards, like, in hindsight, that could have waited. Like, I woke him up for no reason. I could have waited till he came in that day to ask that question. Like, I don't know. I have like this really like deep fear of fucking things up, or like making people mad at me or disappointing people. So, um yeah. I don't even remember how I got into BioLife. Like, how I got started talking about BioLife. Um, right. Right. Oh, I was talking about why I thought Zoloft ruined my life a little bit. So I started taking Zoloft when I was at BioLife. I think it was I want to say it was like the winter right after I had started. And I don't think BioLife was the sole reason that I was depressed by any means. Um, but it's just like the winter. I always get really depressed in the winter. So I started taking Zoloft. And it definitely, like, don't get me wrong, before I started taking Zoloft, I was extremely unstable. Like, there was multiple occasions where I was like, I need to be hospitalized. Like, I'm gonna hurt myself. Um, Never did, obviously. Um, but so I started taking Zoloft, and it definitely took a lot of, like, those bigger feelings away, if that makes sense. Like, the more, I guess, like, suicidal ideation, it kind of took that away. Like, that wasn't really something that I would seriously think about after I started Zoloft. But Zoloft definitely made me feel very gray, and very more like a muted version of myself, which I guess at the time I kind of needed that just to kind of like mute everything, like feelings wise. Um, but after I got through that phase of like Loki wanting to kill myself, I didn't really like that effect wasn't what I needed anymore. Like I didn't need to mute everything or like not feel things. So like this past fall, yeah, I feel like I sound like I'm about to cry. My throat's just really dry. I'm not about to cry. Like I'm so chill right now. Um, my this last fall I started seeing a new psychiatrist. And I was kind of just like, I don't know if we need to change the Zoloft, like just change the medication altogether, or if we need to like add another medication. I don't know, but like I was exhausted all the time. I was very, very fatigued. Like all I really wanted to do was sleep. Um, and it was just really low energy, really unmotivated to do anything. And I feel like that was definitely like a theme throughout the whole time I was taking the Zoloft, I think. But it really started to like almost compound, and it just got a lot worse as like time went on. And then at some point I was like, I can't function. Like I'm exhausted all the time. And like I don't want to do anything. I have no motivation to do anything. Um, and like I was falling behind at work because like I when I stopped Zoloft, I was at my current job. So I was really falling behind with a lot of like patient notes and stuff that needed to get done. And I still fall behind a lot, and do kind of feel like I'm always playing catch up. Like, I'm always like just barely keeping up, if that makes sense. Which is not something that I enjoy or that I am proud of, but for whatever reason, I have no self discipline, and like I just would rather do anything but what I'm supposed to be doing, and I don't know what that's about, but it makes my life difficult. So we're at first she tried to she was like, well, maybe if we up the Zoloft dosage, like maybe you've like gotten like built up a tolerance to it. So we upped it from 100 is what I was taking. So we upped it to 125. And we tried that for a month, and then we met again, and I was like, hey girl, I still am not doing well. And she was like, okay, so we're gonna scrap the Zoloft. So she told me like how to wean off of it and like what dosage to take and for how long, and eventually like eventually I was taking 25 milligrams like every 3 days, which I recently stopped, so I think I'm good. And like I'm not having the withdrawal symptoms anymore, which is good because like the Zoloft withdrawals, I would get like really dizzy and very like I understood what people meant online when they would describe brain zaps, and I don't even know if this is what they're describing, but the only way I can describe it is like stop motion, like very jumpy, and it's just like not a fluid motion. That's how things would start to look when I was when I knew I had forgotten to take my medication. Why am I out of breath? Okay, I'm talking too fast. I need to talk slower and breathe more. I am off the Zoloft. I think I've already said that about 7 times. Anyways, so yeah, she told me how to wean off. She also started me on Strattera, which is, if you don't know, it's an ADHD medication, but it's not a stimulant, so it's not one of the fun ones. Um, Basically, it's actually an SNRI, which is another class of antidepressant. So like all the antidepressants I tried before, the Zoloft, the Celexa, the Lexapro, those are all SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Um, Strattera is an SNRI. So there's other SNRIs that are considered antidepressants, like Cymbalta, or Effexor. Those are SNRIs. But Strattera they found to be more effective for treating ADHD than for depression. Um, and she didn't necessarily tell me that. Not that I okay. She did mention that it's an SNRI. She mentioned that it's a non-stimulant, and that sometimes they use it to treat ADHD. She didn't tell me that that it was like FDA approved to treat ADHD more so than depression. So like it's an ADHD medication. It's not necessarily an antidepressant, even though it's in the antidepressant class. Um, so yeah. So I started taking that. I think like I mentioned earlier, at first it was rough because it was like I couldn't like I would take it too close to when I was supposed to be going to sleep, and then I couldn't really sleep. So that was probably the biggest hurdle. And then I don't really think I had any other dry mouth. Actually, dry mouth I had pretty bad. But it did get me to, it had me drinking more water, which was good. Because I feel like I'm always dehydrated. I don't want to drink water. I want to drink something fun, like my strawberry dragon fruit refresher from Dunkin'. I don't want to drink a bottle of water. That's boring. Um, but also I think I don't drink like I don't know. It'll take me all day to finish this. Yes, it is a large, but like I feel like a lot of people that I know could finish that in like 2 hours. I'm gonna be sipping on that all day. Like I'm when it comes to beverages, very much a sipper. I'll like I said, I will be sipping on this all day. Um, so it's like already don't drink a ton, but if I'm when I am drinking something, I don't want to waste my sips on water, if that makes sense. Like I want to drink something fun. Um, which is bad, but sometimes I do wonder like would my oh, hold on. This might be a game changer. Hold on. What does this work? Chat. Hello? Hold up, hold up. Hold up. Hell yeah, now I don't have to hold it anymore. But I kind of miss holding it actually. I miss holding it like I'm interviewing myself. Um Fuck. What was I saying? Beverages, Strattera, dry mouth. Oh, but sometimes I do wonder, as far as the Zoloft goes, because like I said, I took it for like 2 or 3 years. But sometimes I do wonder how, because it never made me not depressed. Like there was no period where I was on the Zoloft where I would be able to say like I was doing well mentally. And this is about to open up a whole nother can of worms. Like, right. Anyways, this is about to open up a whole other can of worms in the sense that since I've been prescribed the Strattera, since it's an ADHD medication, like I do feel like the Strattera is working for me in a lot of ways. I'm not sleeping as much. I'm not like exhausted all the time, which I do wonder how much of it is the Strattera working versus not being on the Zoloft anymore, since the Zoloft was like killing my soul. Um, but I do wonder how much of it I can even really attribute to the Strattera versus the Zoloft. Um, but since I've been on the Strattera and it is working for me in some ways, I've been like kind of looking into like ADHD just in general. Because there was a period before where I thought I maybe had ADHD because I've always been very like very disorganized and very messy. But I would say my biggest thing that makes me like I don't know was like I did really well in school. Like I was good at school. So I feel like that never raised any concerns for anybody like in childhood because I was good at school and because I was getting good grades. But I think that a lot of it was like I um wanted to like I like I said I'm a people pleaser and I want to like make people proud. So like I've even said I remember saying this to people in school was like the only reason like I do my homework and the only reason I like listen is because I don't want the teacher to be upset. Um but it was always like school was easy for me. Don't get me wrong, like it wasn't something that I was it's so weird. My whole if I turn my arm this way, it looks like there's no tattoo there, but there is. Like school was kind of easy for me, in the sense that like most of the time I didn't really have to study. Like I kind of paid attention in class. I would say the classes I struggled most in were usually science classes. I'm not super good at science. I'm really good at like English, and things like that. Like history, I'm not horrible at. Um, Math, I'm surprisingly good at because I feel like for people, it's either like you're good at English and history or you're good at science and math. Like, I'm pretty good at English and math. I would say those are my two best subjects. Um, because English, I got into like, I was always a reader from a very young age, which I think like just having good like literacy skills, I think, and like the ability to understand like the context of what you're reading and like really comprehend what you're reading, I think goes a long way in an English class. I feel like I kind of skated by throughout a lot of my English classes in school simply because I was a good reader and I like understood what I was reading very well. And I also because I got into reading at such a young age, like I was reading my favorite I really loved the Percy Jackson books as a kid. That was my favorite. And I remember I started reading them and I think fourth grade. I remember definitely reading them in fourth grade, but I don't remember if I had started reading them in third grade or no, it definitely was fourth grade. Because in third grade I lived in South Carolina. But I remember it was in fourth grade because I had a copy of the fourth book, which is the Battle of the Labyrinth. And I had brought it to school with me, and then somebody stole it. So I remember that. Um, but yeah, so I was into the Percy Jackson series when I was in like elementary school, which I think is what really got me into reading. Um, and I read a lot of like the typical like middle school aged books from there. Like I read the Hunger Games, and I really liked that. And actually, I reread it a few years ago, like when I was in college, and I was like, this shit still bangs. Like this holds up. And I almost feel like you don't really like if you read it in elementary, middle school, or like even early in high school. I feel like it's even better if you reread it as an adult because like there's so many things that you don't really see or like you don't really think about when you're reading it as a kid. Like I feel like when you're reading it as a kid, you're thinking about like first of all Katniss and Peeta, and like the tension there, and then also just like the kind of more action based aspects of it. Like I remember when I read it the first time, the first book, The Hunger Games, was my favorite of the trilogy because it was very like the whole book essentially was the games. It felt like I don't know. That might not be true. It might have just been the second half, but it definitely like I don't know. I think when you reread it as an adult, you have more of an appreciation for like some of the underlying themes that Suzanne Collins incorporated into the books. Um, so definitely would recommend a reread to any of you bitches who read it as a youth and enjoyed it. I read it like I said in college a few years ago, and I felt like it was even better, and I appreciated it more. And like, you know what? I might reread it again soon. But yeah, so I was into reading after reading the Percy Jackson books. So like throughout the rest of elementary school and like middle school and like early into high school, I was really into reading. I read a lot. I probably couldn't even tell you. I read a lot of like random one-off books. I didn't really read a lot of series aside from the Hunger Games and Percy Jackson and probably some other ones that I'm just forgetting right now. I never read Harry Potter. I did try. I couldn't really get into Harry Potter. I don't know if it's because they're British or what, or maybe there was just like it was too wordy. The books are long, but I could never really get into Harry Potter. So that would be like, I would say, the big series that was came out around that time that I never got into. I started a lot of series and never finished them. I never finished I never finished the Divergent series. Um, I read book one. I don't think I ever read anything after that. And like, I didn't hate book one, but it didn't it didn't capture my attention in the way where I was like, I need to know what happens next. Like, I kind of didn't really care. I also read the Maze Runners part of the Maze Runner series. And that series was really good. Like, I don't have a reason that I didn't finish it. I never finish anything, by the way. Like, um, even TV shows and like sometimes movies, like I don't finish anything. There's a lot of TV shows where I've like seen the first 3 or 4 seasons and then I don't know what happens after that, and I don't really care. Like, I lose interest. Um, Even like I would say the show that I always come back to is Criminal Minds. Like, I've seen the first few seasons of that show more times than anyone should have watched them. Um, but I've never made it past like season 13, I think. Whatever season it is where Reed goes to jail. That's as far as I usually make it. And I don't like have a reason necessarily, but over the course of the show, things just start to change too much. Like, characters change, and like even like the structure of the episodes kind of changes. Like, I also watched the first like probably 5 or 6 seasons of Supernatural in high school. Um, and I really liked like the first few seasons where it was like, what do they call it? Like the monster of the week. Like, there would usually be like a general overarching plot of the season, that's like woven in between like the cases they're investigating every week. But just in general, like every episode was a different story. Um, and I really like that. I really like that aspect of Supernatural. Once they started to get away from that and they started to get into more like multi-episode story arcs, I really lost interest. And I feel like it's kind of the same way with Criminal Minds. Like, I haven't seen any of Criminal Minds Evolution because I've seen online that it's like almost like one unsub per season, and I don't really like that. Like, I don't know. I just prefer it to be like short little bits, like this case, this episode, this case, this episode, this case, this episode, and like none of those things are connected. So I never really get past like season 13 of Criminal Minds because I feel like that's where that really starts to become a thing. Those like multi-episode arcs, which, like I said, I'm just not super into. Um, but yeah, I never finished anything. Psych, I love Psych. Don't get me wrong, I do love Psych. I think it's a very underrated show. Like, whenever I meet people who have seen Psych, I'm like I feel like we have a special connection now because you like Psych. It's very, very good. I like it's kind of like the perfect balance for me because I love I love a little bit of comedy. Like, it's really, really rare for me to get into a show, I feel like, that doesn't have any aspect of like comedy. Um so Psych is really good because it's like Sean and Gus are very funny. Like, and just kind of the scenarios they get themselves into are funny. Um and the premise of the show where the Santa Barbara Police Department thinks that Sean is a psychic, and he's not a psychic. He's just very observant and um like can contextualize things really well and like put the pieces together better than most people. So he can play psychic, but really he's just noticing the little details, like things that the detective didn't notice. So I feel like that premise of the show, of course it's gonna be funny. Like, of course there's gonna be shenanigans. And then Burton Guster is just such a fucking funny character. Um, and I'm not gonna get into it, but I do really like Psych. Like I said, because it has that element of like comedy, and then because it has like that almost monster of the week format where every episode's like a new case. And occasionally there'll be like a 2 or 3 parter. I'm cool with that. Just to be clear, I don't hate when it's like part one and then part two. I don't hate if it's like one case over 2 or 3 episodes and it's like really dramatic or really intense. Um, I don't mind that. it starts to become like I lose interest. I lose interest when it gets too much into the characters and like too involved in their lives. I stop kind of caring. And then like, just like I said, where it starts to become like the same, like the whole like a whole season is like the storyline is the same. I really like the I know I keep saying monster of the week, but that's like the best way to describe it, I feel like. Because people will describe Supernatural that way all the time. It's like monster of the week. But I really like that format. I feel like it's a lot easier to digest. Um, and then I can kind of like abandon the show and come back to it and not really have missed anything super crucial. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. I've been talking for 50 minutes. And I'm thinking about stuff that I had started to talk about and then just didn't get back to. I'm actually just going to send this video to my psychiatrist because next time I see her, which will be February 5th, next time I see her, I was planning to ask her for like a formal ADHD evaluation. Uh, so we can kind of maybe just discuss like a stimulant medication because I really feel like that would be the most beneficial for me because I consume a lot of caffeine, and like without caffeine, I can't really function. So I think I need that stimulant, um, to just make my brain turn on, if that makes sense. Like otherwise, it feels like my brain is off, um, which is why I get so into energy drinks. Just because, like I said, I need that stimulant. But I was gonna ask her for an ADHD evaluation to perhaps talk about a stimulant medication. Um, but then also just to like maybe understand more, like I don't want to say what's wrong with me, but like what makes me function the way that I do because um even growing up and like doing well in school, part of me did always kind of feel like I was like dumber than a lot of the people around me. Just because like I was so all over the place and like kind of messy. Like I was the kid who like I could have my we could be we're in class. Picture this. We're in class. I'm setting the scene. Teacher's passing out homework. I have my folder in front of me on the desk. The teacher's passing out homework. Do I put the homework sheet in the folder? No, no, why would I do that? I put the folder in my backpack and then shove the homework sheet in after that. And then after I walk out that classroom door, the homework doesn't exist to me. It's not going to get done until I come back the next day and I'm in the classroom and I'm like, oh fuck, she assigned that assignment yesterday and I didn't do it. So now I'm like digging through my backpack like I'm a fucking raccoon digging through the garbage. I'm like, is this it? And I'm like uncrumpling all the papers I pull out. Nope, that's the homework from last week. Throw that away. And like now I finally come across it, but she's coming around to collect all the papers. I'm like, fuck, fuck, fuck. So I'm like trying to hurry up and get it done really quick. So a lot of times for me, as far as homework goes, it would get done either in class right after the teacher passed it out, depending on how easy it was or like how well I understood the lesson. I might do it in class after she passed it out so that it's done for the next day. Um, I did play. I was on the tennis team in high school. Really just because my friends were doing it. Don't get me wrong, I was very bad. Like my hand-eye coordination is non-existent. I can't run. I get out of breath really easily. Um, I just like my body movements are quite awkward, and I don't think that some people are born with the ability. Some people are born gifted with the natural ability of athleticism. Some people are born where it's like maybe it doesn't come naturally to them, but it's like a learnable skill. And then there's people like me who are born all the way at the other end of the spectrum, where it's like you can try all you want. My brain and my body feel disconnected. I'm not an athlete. That's all you need to know. I'm not an athlete. Like I said, hand-eye coordination not great. Um, yeah. Oh, tennis. I was on the tennis team. Um, but since I wasn't very good, a lot of the times I wouldn't even really play in the matches. Like me and my best friend Sydney we were a doubles team. Like so we a lot of times wouldn't even really play when we'd have a match. So like a lot of times during tennis season, we would just be kind of doing our homework, like off in the grass doing our homework, while everybody else played tennis. By the way, I did get a varsity letter for that. We didn't have enough girls for a junior varsity team. I did get a varsity letter for tennis, despite being really bad at it. So I kind of scammed my way into that one. I didn't have money for a varsity jacket though in high school, so I never got to do anything with the varsity letter. The varsity jacket, I don't know if you fucking know this, but it's like $300. Didn't have that. Didn't have that. I tell you that right now. Um, so I didn't have a varsity jacket for the varsity letter, but I did scam my way into a varsity letter. So life hack: find a varsity team at your school that's really tiny for like an unpopular sport. You might be able to scam your way onto the varsity team and get a varsity letter. So if that's really something you're interested in, I would write that down. But yeah, so that's when I would do my homework a lot of time was at tennis. Like at our matches. Or just like I said, like as the teacher's coming around to collect it, I would be trying to rush through and do it. But that's kind of like truly the only thing I ever really got in trouble in school for was just not having my work done. Homework specifically. Like classwork, I for the most part could get classwork done. Like I said, I was very shy. So unless like one of my really close friends was in the class with me, I wasn't like goofing off or really distracted. Like talking to anyone. Like I would kind of like I would have no choice but to do my work. Um, so classwork usually got done. Homework, another story. But like I said, that's kind of the only thing I've really got in trouble for was not doing my homework. And like I would do well on tests, so I think that kept a lot of my grade up. That plus the plus all the homework assignments that I did remember to do and turn in. But um, yeah, that was always kind of my biggest struggle, I guess, in school was just actually doing my homework. Um, so yeah, I've been thinking a lot about over like the course of my life where I thought I've been extremely depressed for a really long like a really long time, like 15 years almost. I thought I was depressed. And that's probably still true. Like there probably were periods of my life where I was depressed. But now I'm kind of thinking like I think maybe a lot of the time I think I have ADHD, and I think a lot of the time it was just I didn't know how to I didn't know what was wrong with me, and like why keeping my room clean was so fucking hard for me, and why remembering to do my homework. And in middle school we had like planners that we were required to fill out. I didn't understand why it was so almost like truly impossible for me to fill that fucking planner out. Like I never did it. And like that sometimes the teachers would come around and they'd want to see that you had your planner filled out. I would just have to write some bullshit in it. I haven't been filling this out all week. I'm making things up. But like it was just a lot of stuff like that where like I didn't understand why things were so hard for me. Um, I just like didn't understand like I said, like what's wrong with me. Like a lot of times I did feel like dumber than everyone else or like lazy. Lazy has been a common theme throughout my mental health. Is that I often feel very lazy. But I saw this quote that was like, if you were lazy, what is it? About like not being able to do something, and it's like if you were lazy you'd be enjoying just laying there, you know. um I don't even know if that's relevant. Anyways, I've been talking for way too long, and I thought that I was only going to talk for about 30 minutes. It's been an hour, so I'm going to shut the fuck up now. um yeah,